bit of a puzzle piece for you today?
Yeah, I think this is, I said it before, this is a little more extreme than maybe you're used to, but also, an opportunity for, guys to step up and play and the timing, there's different situations, and matchups can be different, but all those adjustments that you can't really, address them as much tactically as you try, and then you get out there, and that's why you got to compete and play the game.
I'm curious what you've seen of Jalen playing potentially at the 5 and how he would be able to handle some of those matchups.
Yeah, there's Jalen guards centers a lot of times when we're switching and pick and roll, and I don't know that I would even. I think Jalen's just playing, and he'll be in some of the same situations he's always in. And people have to play off of him. I don't want him to necessarily try to do anything different, but situations will be different. He may be guarding the post more, but he's guarding on the post. He'll just be a different player, So not to overthink it, but as you said, you acknowledge that it is different. There's things about it. I think that's been part of his growth in Onyeka as well. Is finding yourself with game situations that are uncomfortable for you. So to the extent that being uncomfortable, I think is a good thing, and he'll have a chance to hopefully. It isn't a good thing if you're uncomfortable for too long, but the hope is that those things normalize.
You have Kobe back up with you tonight and might have to use him for what would, I guess, would be the first time in a rotation role if that happens. I know he's been out with the ankle last couple games in College Park. What's his kind of status physically, and also what's the messaging to him knowing that he might be part of the rotation tonight?
Yeah, I think this is, with Kobe, like any young player, this is part of the process. And, he's embraced every situation that he's found himself in. And that's part of what it is tonight. Whatever his minutes look like or matchups look like, positionally, how he's being used, what he's doing. I think that's part of the process of, improving. He's an NBA player, which obviously he is. So being ready for it's one of the reasons that the G League is so valuable. Ryan's done a great job with him. Those reps and those minutes are so important to you growing, and so that when you do come into a situation like this, whether it's now or later in the year or whatever it looks like, it's hard to predict. I just think you're just much more, you're more ready. And I think your nervous system slows down a little bit because you've been playing. When you get out there, and it doesn't matter, if you're further south in College Park or in Grand Rapids, it's basketball.
You talked about improvising tonight. Onyeka's had his role switched up for the last few games. Are there any significant takeaways after seeing him for a few games in the starter's role?
Yeah, I don't know that it's as much about him starting as your first part of your question is what he's, what we've needed from him on the floor, and him, finding some confidence in some situations that he's really worked on. He's put time in, and when you do that, eventually you're rewarded for it because your game just grows. You grow as a player, and I think that's the opportunity that he's having right now, and he's prepared himself for it. So his ball skills, his passing. I talked to him about even defensively. Him. He's not going to be a rim protector in the traditional sense, but moving his feet, and being vertical, and a lot of things that he can understand and do to play to his strengths. Not fouling, things like that. But balancing that, you still have to compete and play hard and be physical, and you can't sacrifice those things. But not reaching, I think that, again, it's just the more he's in those situations, the more comfortable you get and the more efficient you are.
Coach, Trey moved into 5th all-time in the NBA, 30-10 list, 30 points, 10 assists, up there with LeBron, Oscar Robertson. Can you just talk about the work he's put in, him joining that list and being there with a lot of his idols?
Well, I think it's impressive, and you'd be remiss if you didn't just acknowledge on the front end that that's an unbelievable accomplishment. He's a young guy, and that makes it even more impressive. I think the thing for him that he's focused on, two things, and I think they're connected, is his efficiency. I know that's something he's taken a lot of pride in. And he's had games where 12 for 17, 12 assists. Those are unique games. And then he's also had games where he hasn't shot the ball well, but he still played well. And so sometimes those numbers are great, but I bet you he's more concerned. That'll be something he'll look back on and be very proud of, as he should be. But he's focused on winning more than any part of that. Like, he's not walking around talking about an accomplishment. He's talking about Houston.
I feel like I'm always asking you about DeAndre, and so my apologies, but is it just...
I always give you the same answer.
I know.
I'm gonna wear you down.
That's is it just performance staff managing him on the back-to-back? Is that simple reason?
Yeah, I mean it's incredibly common, as you know, in this league, particularly when guys are during the return to play process. He's played back-to-backs various times this year, and I think it's not even caution or conservatism, it's just prudence, making sure that he continues to be able to compete on the level. Sometimes when you're a competitor, you push yourself to a point that's maybe beyond where you need to be, particularly as you're coming back from being out for a while.
Coach, as we hit the, final 30 games of the season, I know you have to do it one game at a time, but with the trade deadline now in the rearview mirror, you kind of know the roster you have for this final stretch. How good do you feel about the roster you have? And is it the fact that you won 5 out of the last 7? Does that help you feel better about the way things are going?
Yeah, I mean, wins and losses are obviously important. The thing that I would like to continue to see is the connectivity of our group and the consistency of how we compete, which sometimes those things aren't as obvious, but they're certainly they're incredibly correlated with the score and wins and losses. I felt the same way the whole year about our group, and January is always an interesting month in this league. So, for a team to continue to improve is what we're after, and I hope that's the case over the next 30 games as well.
Quin, as we get close to the All-Star break, 3 games that are obviously all of them important, but this is an opportunity to be able to gain some ground. How do you get your team to stay focused and not look too far to the break and lose any momentum that you may have?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first part of your question, Brian, it's the next 3 games after All-Star break are also opportunities for us to gain ground. But as you know, you've lived it, heading into the break, you want to go into the break feeling good, and I think we can feel good about the way we're playing, and wins always make you feel better. So, we've talked about it for a while, really, during a certain stretch. And so having that, momentum. By the same token, sometimes guys need a little time to get their energy back, and emotionally recharge, Obviously, right now we're a little shorthanded, but I think we've managed that, for a while now, a little more extreme, and so these games, it's time to even focus even more, and I think to see it kind of in a singular way, meaning this is a finite stretch before we get into break. Then there's kind of a stretch run, so to speak. And although, the flip side is we all know they all count the same.
A little off topic.
You guys are gonna let me get to the game tonight?
Caitlin
Do
Clark.
your job, man. All right.
Caitlin Clark is about to set the all-time record for women's scoring at the NCAA level. I was curious if you had cross paths with her at all, and just your thoughts on her influence across the sport.
I haven't met her personally. I read a good article the other day. I want to say it was in the Wall Street Journal or something that tells you that she transcends, college basketball. I think, and it's not just her play. When you watch her, and I've enjoyed watching her, particularly last year during the NCAA tournament, she's got a way that she goes about what she does that's really unique, and not just her competitiveness, but you can, through the grit and the grind, you also see the joy, and I think people identify with that, and what she's doing and who she is, and that manifests itself. You can see it in how she plays, just clearly an inspiration, to not just aspiring women's basketball players, but every guy in that locker room knows who she is. And she's an inspiration to a lot of people, and we're gonna get to keep watching. I don't know if she's gonna come back to school or go to the WNBA, right? Who knows? She may blow that record out the door. Okay. Okay.